Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. I'm Kate.
And I'm Stephanie.
And together with you, we're Three Heads. Today we're talking about ways to manage the grading load. That is one of the hardest things about being a teacher. And I think it's something that society definitely doesn't understand. But I think even new teachers don't understand. But really, when you think about it, as teachers, we create the material, we deliver the material, we help the material get completed, and then we evaluate it. So it's like we keep revisiting the same thing over and over again while also moving forward onto the next thing. And that often becomes something that makes people leave the profession because they just can't get out from underneath that load. And the further you get into the semester, the harder it gets to manage because the more things keep piling on. And if you're not keeping up with things, it just gets almost unmanageable. So today we're going to be talking about one of our strategies for keeping more on top of the workload. I wouldn't say that this strategy all on its own will solve your problems, but it certainly will help you.
Yes. Well, often I start after she kicks off, but this was her baby that I adopted and made my own modifications too. So I'm gonna let her start about what she started doing and why, and then we'll kind of add from there.
So I was in a mom's group, and we at the beginning of the year did a challenge of something that we were going to commit to do every day for 2 weeks, and at the end of 2 weeks we would give ourselves a reward. And I was like, I know what my thing needs to be. I am going to commit to grading 20 minutes per day. I was somebody who would do anything other than grade. I don't like to grade. I don't know very many people who do, to be fair, but I really disliked it. I would prioritize planning, I would prioritize cleaning, I would prioritize organizing, anything besides grading. And so I would be the type of person I was talking about at the beginning who was just like suffocating under this crushing weight of grading.
The last month of the semester was always miserable for you.
And I knew my students weren't getting out of their assignments what they needed. I was giving feedback so far past the time they had done the work, it wasn't helpful anymore. And they were so disconnected from the work at that point. They really weren't that engaged in the feedback. So I just needed to get things under control. I knew that 15 minutes wasn't going to be enough. And if I said 30 minutes, I was going to find ways to get out of it. But 20 minutes, I was like, you can do anything for 20 minutes. And I made a couple of rules for myself. I said it couldn't be within my school day, with the exception of my conference period. I said conference period, that is fine. But if my students are working on something and I'm just going to grade here and there, like that doesn't get to count towards your 20 minutes. But I could do 20 minutes during my conference period, again, because I was somebody who was not using my conference period to grade. Not that very many people use their conference periods to grade. I could do it, after school, if I wanted to do it during lunch or whatever, as long as it was 20 minutes and I didn't have to do a minute more than 20 minutes. I could stop at 20 minutes. And so I did it. I went my 2 weeks, I got my reward, and I was like, I want to keep going. I want to see how far I can go. And I kept going. I did it 7 days a week. That's where Steph and I differed. But for me, I'm the type of person, if I take one day off, that turns into 2 days, it turns into 3. And so 20 minutes a day, it did not solve my grading problems, but it definitely helped me to get it under control.
And I think what was really interesting is we both had, so obviously she told me about this and I was like, oh, it seems like a good idea. I don't like grading. I usually manage to stay more on top of it because I was a deadline to-do list person and it bothered me that it existed. But it really is the sweet spot of time. I started to use it for everything, like chores, workouts, whatever you don't want to do. But because really like 20 minutes like that, oh fine, I'll do anything for 20 minutes, but you actually can get a good amount done in that time. But I thought what was really interesting was we both had different rules about what counted and what didn't. And I think some of that just comes down to what you can stand to grade or not. I think Kate's rule, because she would hold me to it every once in a while, was you can't put feedback on actively learned responses, like on like if it was a turnaround for something a student needed to like do in class and then revise the next day, that didn't count. I
only counted things that were actual grading because it, even as much as it hurt my soul, I was like, this is going to come back to me and I'm going to have to grade it, so I can't count it.
So, which that made sense. If she was with me when I did my 20 minutes, I didn't do actively learn. On my own, I sometimes counted it because for me, I said you can't count anything that is multiple choice or credit, no credit, because she would let herself do that. I like that stuff. I'll do that all day if you want me to grade multiple choice tests. Like, I'm fine. And so I could sit for days and flip through something, checking off. And so I had no problem grading those things. For me, it was if I have to sit and read it and pay attention and give it a score. So I was okay letting myself do in-class feedback. It was the quick and easy fun grading that I wasn't allowed to count. She was also very strict, and I didn't have this in the directions till I was thinking about some of the unexpected benefits, because I was just blown away by how much you actually could get done in 20 minutes. But I think it's because she was very, like, she would, if you talked to her, she would pause her timer. Like, it was a no distraction 20 minutes. And I think that's what I think makes it so productive, is that it's like, fine, I'll ignore my phone for 20 minutes while I get this done. And so you actually can get through a decent chunk of work in 20 minutes. And what I found most beneficial about it is usually for me, once I started, I was willing to keep going. Most times that I sat down to do the 20 minutes, I would sit down for an hour and really keep working. But I just needed to like start. But there are those days where you're just fine. I will do 20 minutes and not a second more.
But then you feel like you've accomplished something. And I think I've mentioned it before, but for me, it stopped me feeling that guilt that, you know, we all do it. We take that stack of papers back and forth, school and home, school and home, school and home, and nothing ever happens to it. Or, you know, a student asks you about an assignment, have you graded it? And it's like, no, not.
And if you ask me again, you're grading yours last.
It's just got moved to the bottom of the pile. But for me, as long as I was doing that 20 minutes a day, I felt productive and I didn't have that same level of guilt, because I was like, I'm working my way through as quickly as I can, realistically. And so I didn't feel that same guilt. So when that student said, you know, have you graded my essay yet? No, I haven't gotten to that yet, but it's coming.
I really am working on them.
Exactly. And I wasn't lying. I was being truthful.
Now, we do have a modification. This one was my baby that she adopted, because even with the 20-minute system, the semester still does end, and you end up with, oh shoot, I gotta actually like finish these off. And so what I started doing in what I called like crunch time, whether that was just, we knew, okay, we do actually need to turn this assignment around fast, or, oh, there's gonna be another essay due this day, so we gotta make sure it's done by then, or whatever it was, or again, just end of the semester, you got to grade what you got to grade.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would do my daily quota system, and I would count how many days between now and when I had to turn it in, count my number of papers, partly because, you know, then I could procrastinate by counting papers instead of grading, duh. And then I would divide, and I'd say, great, all right, every day I'm going to grade 5 essays, 3 flip charts, and 6, I don't know, whatever's. And then that would be like, okay, obviously that's gonna be more than 20 minutes, but there was just something about knowing I only had to grade 5 essays that I was way more willing to do it. Even though, okay, I still have to grade for an hour or two, at least it's like a couple of these, a couple of these, a couple of these. Because there's some assignments where you can get in the zone and just crank them out. And then there's others where, like, if I had to grade a whole stack of essays, I would have gone for a walk between every single one.
Yeah. That for me was the hardest part of it, was like with the 20 minutes, like you said, I would pause my time if somebody wanted to talk to me or I wanted to talk to somebody. And so I tended not to. I would be like, I can talk to you in a few minutes because I want to get through. But with the quota, it doesn't quite work the same way. So that for me was hard. Another thing that I would do is that if somebody turned something in late, they forfeited me commenting on their assignment. I was no longer going to comment on their assignment. They were welcome to stop by after school. And I was very like, you're not coming in during lunch. We're not talking during passing periods. You can come in after school and I would be happy to talk to you about your work, but I'm not able to provide you any sort of written feedback on this assignment, because when you're working on that quota and you're trying to keep up with things and somebody's always turning in something late, it's just dragging it out even longer. So, and it also incentivizes those students who want feedback, because surprisingly there are
a couple.
2, to turn work in earlier, turn work in on time so they get that feedback.
Yeah. So those are really they're psychological tricks. You're just tricking ourselves into making it less bad than it really is, to looking at 5 essays instead of a pile. But sometimes those tricks are what you need.
Exactly. What are your tricks for getting through grading, whether it's just your sort of standard grading or you are in, as Stephanie labeled it, crunch time? What do you do to get through that grading faster? Let us know in the comments down below. If you want to know more of our tips and tricks, check out our related podcast and blog post, which are linked down below. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.